Hi, I'm Kevin, and this is my vlog. So this is going to be the third of three videos about my youth choir mission trip to Virginia, the Virginia Beach area. Yeah. And so this is just going to tie up all the loose ends and talk about the smaller projects that we really only spent like 1 or 2 hours at per. So it might actually end up being a little bit longer than the other videos just because of the bunch of different things I'm talking about as opposed to like one technically smaller but bigger in and of itself things. The Sunday we were there, the 22nd, we sang at a retirement community. We performed our whole musical thing there. And at first they seemed very, not necessarily uptight, but like very proper and formal, and not the normal relaxed venue we normally have when doing this sort of thing. And especially one thing they said that kind of made me in particular nervous was that normally they don't allow like people offering their testimonies during worship services, but they made an exception for some reason, I guess. I don't remember the exact details. But anyways, I was going into it and I'm like, I'm not technically allowed to do this, so I guess I'll just have to be way different and like try to be a little bit more formal than my normal relaxed casual self. But when I got up to do my testimony, there were some minor technical difficulties, I guess you could say. For some reason the mic kept crackling and making weird sounds into the speaker, and so I was like freaking out in my own way. But then the whole mood of the room kind of lightened up a little bit. And like at that point I realized, you know what? It's okay if it's not like what they're normally used to, or it's not their normal way of doing things. Because, you know, I have a message that I have to say, and this is how God has worked in me and in my life personally. And I shouldn't change my story or try to represent an idea different than the person I actually am through telling my story just because it's a different thing than the people I'm talking to are used to, or because they normally don't have this sort of thing going on. And so that really kind of set the tone for me for the week, of really just like avoiding grandstanding and trying to be really genuine and real and faithful to my story and to the gospel, to not try to beat around the bush or change who I am or what my story is, just because of the people we're talking to. And so that was like a really good first project for us to go to in that sense. So yeah, the next day we worked at a place, I believe it was called the Union Mission, and basically it's this big warehouse of food, and our job was to sort the food, make sure like none of it was expired or broken or anything like that, like the jars or whatever like cracked open, just because, you know, you don't want to give away spoiled food to people. Yeah. And we also sorted it into boxes so that it could be distributed to like families or people who really needed it. And so we didn't learn until we were actually finished that there was one guy, his name was James, and his job is to do what the 31 members of our youth choir were doing all by himself. So what we got done in a little bit over half an hour, that is all he does during his normal week. Like, it was crazy. And so like they apparently had to actually find extra work for us to do because they didn't expect for us to finish what they had as quickly as we did. So the three people who were working there, I don't remember their names besides James, but like when they were thanking us at the end, they were clearly all fighting back tears. Like, they so deeply appreciated what it was that we were doing, and seeing young kids who were so willing and so ready to do work for this ministry and to do God's work in this community. And so that was just like really touching to all of us, because it seemed so small and insignificant to us, the work, and we're just like, oh, whatever, we can just knock this out super easy. But like, they were all overcome by the end of it, and it was just like, it was just a really amazing time and experience for us. And the next place we went, it was a place called Hope Haven, and it was like a nursing home. And we sang and did our musical there, and I got to talk to a couple of the elderly folks living there. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about that. Nothing particularly momentous occurred. And then the following thing we did that day, it wasn't the next day, we went back to the Union Mission and sang for their homeless shelter. And we did our whole musical. And afterwards, for those of you who don't know sort of my story, 4 years ago, my father died due to some complications after a really bad car accident that we were in. And so after we sang and did our musical and I did my testimony and everything like that, a guy came up to me and he was just like, hey, I wanted to talk to you. And he pulls out his name tag from work and it says Kevin. And he's just like, hey man, I just wanted to say, first of all, you got a really good name. And second of all, I lost my mom about 2 years ago, so I kind of know where you're coming from and all this. And so that was just like a really cool, weird experience. Like the way I said it was, we share a name and a story. Just kind of a funny way of looking at it, but like, yeah, to have such a similarity with a guy like that, that I just met that day, it was really cool. And so the following day, what did we do that morning? Thinking out loud, we worked at... Wait, no, what we did that day was we went to the naval base in Virginia Beach. I got to go to a helicopter, and there were a million buttons, and I didn't know what any of them did. So yeah, I asked the dude, and he was just like... It took me like a long time to figure out what all the buttons did. And so he kind of like ran me through some of the basic stuff, but I honestly couldn't tell you how to fly a helicopter. It's complicated. There are a million buttons. But anyways, the next day, that morning, worked at a place called Oasis Ministries, and I basically cracked a whole bunch of eggs. Like a whole bunch. Like easily over 200 eggs. Not by myself, like we had a whole squad, but mad eggs, yo. And then we sang our musical for the people who were like at the kitchen there, receiving the food, and like the workers there. And so, like, while we were doing it, it was really, in a lot of ways, discouraging, because we were singing, but they were pretty much going about business as usual. Like, they were just talking at their tables, they were eating. A lot of them left during our musical. And so, especially when I got up to do my testimony, I felt really discouraged at the time, because I was basically bearing my life for all to see, and I felt like everyone there was ignoring me. And so that was really sad for me. But I just sort of prayed there on the spot to myself, God, just empty me of myself right now. Like, me in this point, like me right now, I'm not important. But God, there's someone here who needs to hear your story. And if they hear it through me, then let your will be done. But if they hear it through someone else, let your will be done. But at the end, after everything, one man came up to me and said, thank you, man, for sharing your testimony. It really did touch me. And so that was a really big encouragement to me. And I really desperately needed it, because it was the last day, and I was tired, and I just had this huge discouraging debacle during the musical. And so that was a really big encouragement to me. But yeah, that's everything I want to say. Yeah. So this concludes my video recap of youth choir tour to Norfolk and other Virginia Beach area places in Virginia. So yeah, stay beautiful, YouTube.